In this video, I will show you how you can run wpf/winforms.net applications on a Linux virtual or remote machine and how you can remote debug the application using Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code from the Windows system. In the previous video, I showed you how you can debug .NET applications running on Windows Subsystem for Linux or WSL. This video is a follow-up. The application I have prepared in Visual Studio is a WPF.NET application. It's basically the same application as in the previous video, but instead of WinForms, this one uses WPF. It has some data bindings, event handlers, simple undo-redo functionality, and a message box showing the .NET version currently used and showing that it is running as a 64-bit process. As you can see, it's built for .NET 4.5, an older framework version. The same application I can also build, run and debug in Visual Studio Code. Let's run it on Linux. Here I have the latest 20.04 Ubuntu LTS release at the time of recording with the 5.8 kernel running as a virtual machine in VirtualBox. As said in the previous video, WPF and WinForms desktop applications are at the time of recording not supported in Linux, but we can still run them using Wine. Wine version 6 is already installed and configured on this system, so I don't need to go through the installation process here. If you want to know how to install and configure Wine, then you can check out my previous video. The link is in the description as well as the Wine installation commands. In this video, I will walk you through the rest of the setup. So if you're new to Linux or want to know more about the interaction between a Linux and the Windows system, then I highly recommend to watch the whole video. But if you're only interested in the debugging part, then fast forward to a specific timestamp in the description. All necessary installation commands are also there as well. The virtual machine needs to have access to our .NET application folder on Windows. For this to work, make sure to install the VirtualBox guest additions. I haven't installed them yet, so let's do this quickly. Update repositories and install the needed packages. Now under devices, select insert guest addition CD image and run it. You should see an output like this if it was successful. Remove the image and let's add the shared folder under devices, shared folders, shared folder settings. Click on add new. My .NET application is on drive C under sources MVC. We want to auto mount it under /media/MVC and make it permanent. That's it. Now restart the virtual machine. We are back and first we can notice that the Ubuntu desktop now fits the Windows size. That's very nice. And under files we can see the mounted folder. We don't have permission to look inside yet, so let's fix that. Open the terminal, check folder permissions. Root is the owner and the group is vboxsf. Both the owner and the group have read, write and execute permissions. All others have no permissions. For this example, it will be sufficient to add the current user to the vboxsf group. Now restart the virtual machine again because a simple logout login will not work. Back again and now we can see inside the folder. Let's give our application a shot. Open the terminal, write Wine and navigate to the mounted folder where the application is built. Enter, let's try it out. Seems to work. The framework is also recognized and the process is running as a 32-bit process. If we run Wine64 instead, we get the 64-bit process. So far so good. We want to debug the application from a Windows host, so we need a way to connect to the Linux system. We'll use SSH. In Ubuntu, install the OpenSSH server, check the SSH status. It should already be running. This is generally enough for a remote Linux system to accept SSH requests, but VirtualBox in addition requires port forwarding in order to be accessible to the host. Get the IP address of the system, go to Devices, Network Settings. Here make sure Attached to is set as NAT and under Advanced open port forwarding. Add a new rule, fill out the name, set host IP to the local host address, port 22, paste the Ubuntu IP address as the guest IP address and set guest port to 22 as well. The Linux side OpenSSH server is ready. Now we need the client on the Windows side. We will use a free third-party program called PuTTY. I've already installed PuTTY on this machine inside the program files PuTTY folder. In here I will start the PowerShell console. In this example I will demonstrate how to set up a key-based authentication so we don't need to deal with the Linux login password. Let's generate the keys using PowerShell. I will generate them inside my user profile.ssh folder. RSA type 4096-bit long. No passphrase. It generated two files, a public-private key pair in OpenSSH format. PuTTY has its own format, so open the generated private key with the puttygen.exe and save the key back as a ppk file. This converted private key file will be used by PuTTY. The other not converted public key file will be copied as is to the Linux system. PuTTY also provides a tool for copying files called PSCP, port 22, public key file path, username at localhost as said earlier, and the predefined path authorized underlined keys where the OpenSSH server on Ubuntu expects specs to find the public key. Enter. This will also be the first SSH connection test. Enter the Linux password. The file copy was successful. Next, start pagent.exe with the private key file. Pagent is an SSH authentication agent for PuTTY that runs in the background and stores the keys for us. Let's see if it works. PuTTY.exe, username @localhost. PuTTY's terminal opens and we are logged in. No password or key prompt for the login, and that's exactly what we want. This will work as long as pagent.exe agent is running. Now for the final test, let's start our application inside Linux from Windows PowerShell. plink.exe is another of PuTTY's tools for single or batch command execution, and here it's best to use the additional -t option to disable pseudo terminal allocation. Otherwise we'll get all kinds of control characters as output that plink can't handle, but an actual terminal app can. This time the application didn't start, and here we also have the reason why. It couldn't find a display, and this is right, we don't have a display here, we only have a console, but we can use the display of the virtual machine and show the application there. Let's check the display environment variable of the session in VirtualBox and set the variable in the remote call. Now the app is displayed in this already existing session. We can work with that, but checking the variable in an existing VirtualBox session isn't really elegant and also doesn't work if the user gets logged out from the session for some reason. There is another way to display the app. SSH also offers X11 forwarding, which basically sends the application display to the client over the network. The client then has to interpret the data using a so-called X server and display it. Windows does not have an X server built in, but there are third-party alternatives like the open source VCXServe tool. I have already installed it under program files VCXServe. Just run it with a few simple command line arguments. That's it, X server is running. Start the application again with the -X option for X11 forwarding, and in addition, let's also enable compression with the -C option. It should improve performance a bit. Now the app gets displayed on Windows, although it is actually running remotely on Linux. X11 forwarding is a very powerful feature and also makes things a lot easier when using Docker containers and remote machines. That was quite a bit of setting up, but we are finally there. Now comes the debugging part. In order to start debugging a Windows.NET application that runs using Wine, we also need to run the debugger using Wine. I'm talking about the debugger standalone application that comes with Visual Studio Code C# extension. It gets installed in your Windows user folder under .vscode, extensions, ms.NET tools.c#, .debugger. Now copy the whole .debugger folder into your Ubuntu user home directory and I'll rename it to .vs-debugger. Let's debug the application with Visual Studio Code first. Open the launch.json configuration, and here, like in the previous video, we will add another attached configuration. Instead of the process ID, we will add the process name and use the pipe transport, because we cannot invoke the debugger directly. The pipe program is PuTTY's plink.exe that we used before, and under the debugger path, we'll add plink's command line arguments: connection, X11 forwarding, compression, no pseudo terminal, and the command we want to start, which is the previously copied debugger vsdbg.exe on Ubuntu that runs using Wine. Notice that we are not using pipe args here, so make sure to remove them. Now open the CS project file and make sure to add debug type portable and enable debug symbols. Let's build, terminal, run build task, start application either in Ubuntu or using PowerShell, and attach. Attaching was successful. Those error from pipe program messages are the regular Wine output running the debugger that is cached here. We can see that the symbols are loaded, and Z drive here is the way Wine sees the Ubuntu root folder, and here is our mounted project folder. Let's make a breakpoint at the beginning of the undo handler, make a change, undo, and we've hit the breakpoint. The full debug information is here with the call stack. We can step through the code, jump to cursor, add to watch, add conditional breakpoints, and break on exception also works as expected. Let's now write a launch configuration. Very similar, we need the pipe transport, and for the program, we need to tell the debugger that runs using Wine where the program can be found. Our application is not on this path in Linux, but under Z media as we saw earlier. The configuration is ready, but if you try to run it, unfortunately the debugger crashes. Same issue as in the previous WSL video. It turns out it's .NET Framework related, so I switched the framework to a newer version, .NET 5.0-Windows. Adjust the configurations to match the new build path, and the type is Core CLR now. If you try to launch, we see the debugger works now with .NET 5. Let's try a breakpoint. Works, and we have again all the debug information. So much about debugging in VS Code. Let's get over to Visual Studio. Here we need a similar JSON configuration file, so I will create one and paste the configurations in. Instead of the pipe transport, we have the adapter up here, which launches the debugger in Linux using Wine. Let's try it out. To launch it, we need a command window. Write debug adapter host.launch/launchjson, then the path to the JSON file /configuration name and the configuration name .NET Wine launch. Here it is. We see the symbols are loaded. Set a breakpoint. And it breaks. The full debug information is here as well. Stepping, watch window, conditional breakpoints, and break on exceptions also works as expected. Finally, let's try the attach configuration. Start application, attach, and we are indeed attached. And that's all for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you found this video useful and want to see more videos like this one, please subscribe, give a like, and hit the bell icon to get notified when I release new videos. See you in the next one. Bye.